everyone, welcome to tonight's Science and Nature. My name is Casey and I'll be your host tonight. So just a few housekeeping items. We are recording this presentation live on Facebook and we'll be uploading it afterwards to people online. Please feel free to let us know what city you're watching from. And if you have any questions, just add them into the chat, and everyone in person. Thanks so much for coming. You can help yourselves to some refreshments in the back of the room, and we'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation or during as well. So I'd like to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee. We offer our gratitude to the Mohawks of Akwesasne for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. We are grateful for the time and knowledge that our neighbors share with us, and we strive to improve the health of the Great River. If you want to know more about what's happening at the River Institute or around the river, then follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And to see this presentation again or the previous ones, you can check out our Science and Nature website or our YouTube channel, which is just at the bottom of the screen. So as always, I'll be going over some events that are happening. Around this upper St. Lawrence River area. So World Turtle Day tomorrow at Nicandry Nature Center in Messina from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be presentations, crafts, and you'll get to meet some real live turtles. And then on Thursday, June 4th, the River Institute will be at the Aquatarium in Brockville from 4 to 5:30, presenting a hands-on training session with the Water Ranger testing kits. And all of these events and more can be found on the River Strategy website. And if you have an event coming up, just let me know and I will definitely post it. So coming up, our next Science and Nature presentation will be Thursday, June 18th by River Institute staff, including Erin Smith, Emily Jareshi, and myself, presenting about using community science for research purposes, more specifically water temperature along the St. Lawrence River, and we will also be doing a hands-on water testing workshop as well. So for tonight, the presenter will be Rob MacRae. So in the mid-1960s, Rob's family moved from Halifax to a town west of Kingston. His earliest memories of the waterway are family beach trips and filling a bag with garbage. His father, an early environmental advocate, genuinely disliked the mess left by other beachgoers. After leaving his career in the early 1980s, Rob returned after 25 years to a significantly altered landscape. The initial experience profoundly affected his perception of our watershed. Since his return, Rob has educated himself and dedicated long hours to learning the close link between river biology and the environment, particularly its impacts on our fisheries. The St. Lawrence River has become a constant learning companion for him. Rob remains committed to numerous programs that promote habitat surveys and the long-term sustainability of species. He is actively involved in these programs, spending most days on the water. So I'd like to bring Rob MacRae to the front, please.
Thank you. So we're just going to take a little bit of time here to change from one slide deck to another. The shameless plug. Folks, if you don't know, I am a chapter chair for the Gananoque Thousand Islands chapter of Muskies Canada. I've been holding that position for about the last 7 years after I wrestled it from a very nice gentleman named Mr. Jim Hutchings. Right now, our friends with, right now, Muskies Canada has about 15 different chapters spread throughout Canada, well, more Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick. We have about 960 members total. And for our little chapter out here in Gananoque, we have about 73, 74, that fluctuates. I did write down a few things as Cassie. I just wanted to make sure when I do my introduction, we have things, I have all my angles covered. You need to know what I am and what I am not. First of all, I'm a multi-species angler and river volunteer. I sit on many St. Lawrence River committees, River Strategy Subcommittee, River Strategy and the Subcommittee in Fish Health. I'm FMZ 20 East, the Esocad rep for muskies, pike, grass pickerel, and now chain pickerel. I guess they're into the system. We'll define that a little bit better for you a little later in the presentation, what that actually looks like on the ground through maps. What I am not is a scientist or a biologist, but I do come in with an extensive land environment background, and I also have a detailed planning background. So through my life, through my former job, I worked operational planning, and that actually puts together a very large aspect, trying to figure out exactly what people are up to, who's responsible for what piece, whether it's provincial, state, federal, national on the US side, trying to figure out who's responsible for what job on the St. Lawrence River. It's almost a full-time job for me, just trying to figure out. And I really like that the Ministry of Natural Resources not to keep changing titles and confusing me as I'm trying to figure out who's responsible for what job. As we move through the presentation, we'll open up on our roles and influences on the river. So the Muskies Canada Group in Gananoque, since its inception in 2002, has never been not employed on the river doing something in support of the environment or in support of the species of our namesake. The bottom line is we're a fishing club, and we have no authority except for what has been extended to us. We have garnered an awful lot of respect on the St. Lawrence River, and we will continue to do so through our volunteerism and through the work that we do. More familiar territory. Some of the points we'll cover today is our river relationships. Everybody has a relationship with the river. Have a little bit of fun is what is a fishing club, or what's a fishing club? When it talks about the sciences that we do or the programs we support, I have two titles here, Finding a Fit and Suitable Partners. They echo one another because it's important that when we sign on with somebody, we understand one another and the expectations, and they do reflect one another. Initiatives that the Gananoque Thousand Islands chapter are actually involved with, currently participating in. We'll talk a little bit about adaptive programming. And my last little piece here is reality bites. I didn't put a slide up. I didn't write a whole bunch down except for a couple of points I have here, because there's some things that I feel I have control over, or there's some things we can influence. Then other things I can't, because I just don't know how to fix it. And that's, I guess, why we're here, and maybe we'll get that information out and we can start putting some heads together and help solve some of the problems that we have. Before I slide to the next one, river relationships, I'll stand in front of a crowd every time and I'll say, know your history. And I'm not a history buff. I mean, there's dates and things of that nature that we can get ourselves involved with, and everybody can act really smart, put a date, time to almost everything that we do. However, I say rule number one, know your history. This is Grandma's house leaving Dickinson's Landing on its way to Ingleside. So I say history before colonization. Our watershed is over 10,000 years old, and there's a whole bunch of history that's involved in that space. Industrialization, we try not to fix dates to it, but I mean, that's over 250 years ago. As soon as we started to alter watercourse, the Gallup Canal, things of that nature, when they started to build it, we started to change the ecology on the water and the environment. Recent history is a place that we're going to fix ourselves to. It's just pre-build for the hydroelectric, pre-build for the lake shipping. So I call that recent history, and that's probably 90 years ago to now. The picture on the right-hand side of our slide here is my wife's maternal grandmother's place, and the first house to leave Dickinson's Landing. It was kind of an interval house. So it moved up into Ingleside, and as families were moved out and their homes were moved, they got to move into it. My wife's grandmother proper, they sold that place and moved to a farm near Prescott, and that's where That's where our story begins, or her story begins. Mine may have started in 1965. Her family started years, eons before. So our next slide. Oh my, the GAN chapter's anglers. We are very dedicated to our species. And because we have enough science background, we keep our folks well informed. There's a lot of clubs out there, they seem to fester in their own belief that, they've got things solved. Well, we've partnered ourselves with some of the smartest people on the watershed. Thousand Islands Biological Station, our friends from the River Institute, Queen's University, Parks Canada, Ministry of Natural Resources. We don't spread false images. I don't spread what I think should be happening. I get direction from the people that are actually driving the river. We're a social club. And it's actually pretty funny because our social club ranges in age from probably 85, and if you take a look at the bottom left-hand corner, that's young Emma. That's one of our newest members, only beaten by her little sister Ella, which was born less than 2 weeks ago. We do have a lot of fun with the club, and it is a family affair. Volunteerism, it gets emotional with me because there's so much work that is being done by our membership out there. They don't have to do this. No one's getting paid any money. And I want to extend that to the rest of Muskies Canada. There is nobody on the docket. What we do is free of charge, and sometimes you couldn't get paid enough for the job anyways. You may as well volunteer. International collaboration. We sit in international waters, and most of our work is done, or a lot of our work is done not only in Canada, but in direct support of the Thousand Islands Biological Station's Muskellunge Rehabilitation Program. Many, many, many hours. I say not all of our members are Canadian. We get recognized by our friends down south. About a little more than a quarter, almost a third of our membership is American. New York, Illinois, Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Missouri. I've met most of these people. I go out of my way. We meet them in Clayton, New York. We have dinner, we have lunch before we throw them out in the water with some of our guides, some of our U.S. guides. Our little picture there, we like to think we're a sophisticated lot. We are anglers. We are conservative by nature. Right now you've got me with a collar on, and I did manage to shave this morning. Fish Management Zone, or FMZ 20 East. One of my responsibilities. I am an FMZ 20 East. I sit on that committee, and I am the Assocket representative. So I've got you basically covered all the way from the Bay of Quinte through to the Quebec border. That's basically the footprint for most of the work that goes on. So if you have questions, we're open. Try to do this for you. The East Basin of Lake Ontario, basically from Prince Edward County to Sacketts or Henderson Harbor. That space in there is the East Basin of Lake Ontario. The Bay of Quinte, we're familiar with it. Amherst Island, place called Bath, and just to the east of Bath is a small town called Amershey where I was raised as a young man. Thousand Islands start in here at Wolfe Island and work its way all the way to Brockville. That's where we kind of draw the line of the Thousand Islands. We've got the Narrows from Brockville all the way to the Iroquois, Lake St. Lawrence from the Iroquois to the Moses Saunders Power Facility, and then Cornwall or Lake St. Francis, which is an enigma in all this, and we have a little bit of fun with it. So we got the East Basin, the Bay of Quinte, Thousand Islands, the Narrows between Brockville and the Iroquois, Lake St. Lawrence, a man-made feature, and then Lake St. Francis. And we call Lake St. Francis the enigma. They don't suffer. They don't suffer like the Upper St. Lawrence. What we actually have there is a space that is healthy, the stock, the muskellunge stock, is healthy. Even though they suffer the same water quality issues that we have in the upper St. Lawrence, they can manage to survive. So within that space, within that footprint, you have a complete, it's different almost every 30 miles you travel down the St. Lawrence River. The region is part of what they call a lake management zone, which is not inland. Where inland they can get in and they can take a look at a watershed every 5 years. Lake managed areas, they're in the water every year collecting data. So the Ministry of Natural Resources is responsible for collecting data every year. It may not be ready to use the following year, but within the first 2 or 3 years, that data that they collected is ready for distribution and use. Finding a fit. When we first started our foray into the St. Lawrence River, our chapter started in 2002. We partnered immediately up with the Ministry of Natural Resources in their efforts to identify breeding areas for the muskellunge. We have a copy of that right now, and we're going to be handing that out a little bit later. So as we started to progress into 2005, Parks Canada picked us up because the Ministry of Natural Resources had made a decision not to continue with their monitoring of the waterway or monitoring of the nearshore waterway on the St. Lawrence. And that's where Parks Canada picked us up in 2005, and we've been working with them ever since. 2006, we got 21 years, and we only missed one through COVID. Parks Canada, the River Institute, Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, MECP, Thousand Islands Land Trust, TIBS, universities. When we get solicited to come in and provide assistance, we got to take a look at our situation, take a look at the synergies that can be garnered. It's not just the fish, it's the environment, it's the ecologies. We got to mitigate expectations, like what they actually need from us and what we're actually able to produce, and that goes both ways. My responsibility to provide suitable volunteers. Because these volunteers, sometimes they don't quite understand what they're volunteering for, we make sure that they're educated or bring the experts in to give them to have a conversation with them to make sure that they're aware of their responsibility once they hit the water. The teams that we're associated with or the teams that they need, we have to educate and train them. We have to equip them. And then you got to position the anglers for success, or the people that are participating, the volunteers for success. But it's not just that. We got to position realistic expectations for the people that want the science done. I've actually received a phone call from Queen's University as an extension. There was some underwater videography that they wanted done, and they wanted me to produce for them an area where they could watch muskellunge feed. That is unrealistic expectations. I was surprised when I got the call. I didn't really know how to answer to it. It took me 2 years to find a spot that was active. It was First Nations down near St. Regis, and the muskellunge had finally showed up and were eating walleye off a shallow point. 2 years. By that time, hopefully the will to film fish underwater feeding went away very quickly, but absolutely unrealistic. So we got to take a look at positioning people for success, making sure that they understand what's within the sphere of the plausible. Finding the fit and now suitable partners. We like this. What you can see in pictures. We got to find common ground. And like I said, environment, ecologies. We're musky people. All you got to do is say musky a couple of times. You'll probably tweak our interest. Requirements and expectation. Again, like I said, we're going to retouch on these because a lot of folks think that we can pull fish out of the ether. It's very easy to collect information on St. Francis. You try to do the same thing on the East Basin, and it's not snowing. You're challenged. How integration helps. Like, what are you doing and how can we help each other? Let's get this going. We do have a very young set of volunteers. They're eager, especially when I put out, the call for volunteers to do certain jobs. They're actually fighting to get in the water to pull nets. They like that seining stuff. Equipping and training, whether it's on the fly or I got to pick you up and I got to take you down to the States to show you how to have John Farrell and his team show us how to tag and do genetic harvest. Properly deploying volunteers. And I mean, we have to keep it realistic because a lot of people put an awful lot of pressure on themselves to do things that, well, it's astronomical. My first year out there trying to tag fish, I thought I was Superman. Boy, was I beaten into another lifetime just trying to stick to my area. I could run away and go to St. Francis and make myself a rock star, but I got to stick in my space. I got to stick in the area of my responsibility and keep within, I'm going to say 20 miles either side of Mallory Town and fish those areas and collect the data from that space. Undiluted fixed reporting lines. What I mean by that is when we start collecting information, it's not going to this person or that person or another person through another. We have a fixed report line. And I'll add something to the fixed report line is I want everybody to have access to it. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it for everybody, not just one group. Monitoring the program and as it develops. And I say adaptive review because at one point we did strategic planning. And that strategic planning put us in a position where we were working on a fixed line. Unrealistic to get to the results that we were after. So we go through an adaptive review process right now. It is not managed by the fishing club. The adaptive review process is done through the people or the authors of the programs that we're working with. We take a look at what worked right this year, what didn't work very well, and we do a slight course adjust to make it easier on the people that are out there doing the work. The Gananoque chapter's current objectives or initiatives, there's a few of them. The one that's most important sits there at the bottom. We're completely dedicated to the continuing muskellunge long-term rehabilitation project. We've lost 50% of the population, or it was an estimated, a conservative estimate, 50% of the population of muskellunge in the upper St. Lawrence. Parks Canada seining initiative started in 2005, but before that, the 3 years before that, we were working with finding the nursery habitats for the muskies. We're on call academic support to whatever university needs their students out there to find themselves something to track and fish. So we're open for business for academia. And I say support to the Thousand Islands Muskie Long-Term Restoration Project, a citizen science. It's a citizen science program. I want to talk a little bit about it. It is done through Muskies Inc. It's done through Muskies Canada. It's through the Ministry of Natural Resources, and it's through the Department of Environment and Conservation. It is muskellunge specific and one of the only ones of its type in North America today. We don't talk a whole bunch about it. It's not my space. We want to talk about that program. We pull in the experts that are responsible for running it, and that's Dr. John Farrell. We do community outreach, basically from Belleville all the way to Cornwall, as best we can. I want to talk a little bit about community outreach. They found out that we'd stop by, we'd have a little bit of fun with our group. We pull this little, my truck pulls a boat. We have Waldo, we put Waldo up. He's from 1986. He's a horrible mount, but he makes a great story. We do this for free. We are a service. But what we are not in this case is we actually have people that'll get a hold of us and say, would you like to come out? It'll cost you $450 for the weekend and you can park yourself there and speak, pass on the good word. We're not rigged for that. We don't have the money for that. Like I said, we're volunteers and we're a public service. We're an information hub on the St. Lawrence River, and we will go to you. Try not to charge us too much. Water Ranger is, we have deployed Water Ranger. I'll sit there and look at him. He can give us another kid. I'm pretty sure I can get that thing looked after. But we are the only group in Muskies, Canada right now that is deploying Water Ranger. It's a hard sell. I'm pushing it hard because of its linkages. We have an in-house artificial intelligence photo recognition. All of a sudden, there's some synergies that start coming up. In conversation with our friends down south, and in conversation with our guys, our IT guys with Muskies Canada, we actually have a tool right now where we can take pictures and you can try to size them up on watersheds and maybe see if you've caught the same thing. But then all of a sudden, there's some synergy there. You don't have to necessarily see the fish that you're catching on a watershed. You get a close enough look at it, you can actually take a look at some of the marks that are on it. Is this fish healthy? You start putting a little bit more emphasis on a program that we're already running within Muskies Canada, get a couple of pictures, and then we start reflecting what the fish are actually looking like on every water body that we're fishing muskies across Canada. It's a work in progress. We do have a science advisory committee, and it's going to take a little bit of time. But I see Water Ranger, I see AI photo recognition, and I see Muskies Canada's log portal becoming very, very, very important in the near future. And finally, our citizen science program is something that I had to spark up last year because we had licensing issues. You can't just go out on water and start tagging fish. It's not a free-for-all. You need international license. You're in international waters, and you have to have authority to get out there and do this stuff. What happened last year, there was a delay in it. I was able to contact our friends with the Ministry of Natural Resources and start deploying out pit tag readers to our average fishermen, just so when they catch fish, can start looking for these fish that have been tagged in the past. So we've started that in-house with the group in Muskies, Canada, with the view to build that capacity to a point where visitors are coming to the water or coming to our neck of the woods. They can swing by the house, pick up a pit tag reader for the day, and just go out, enjoy themselves. We don't really care where you fish, but I mean, as soon as you catch a fish that's tagged, there's a little bit of information we might need from you. And again, to rehash, we are dedicated to the continuing Muskellunge long-term rehabilitation project. We are hook, line, and sinker in with that group. Next picture will kind of define some of the problems that we're having. Actually, it's a major problem. And this is the exact same dock. Picture on the left from 2019, 2021 on the right. This is midsection, this is a Mallory Town launch. The difference there is almost 5 feet, 60 inches. People don't understand what that does or how that translates at Montreal and why things are delayed, some of the problems that we have. The low water is absolutely devastating for our fish, our spawning efforts, the natural spawning efforts. It will continue to be a problem because we just can't seem to manage that. This year we're very fortunate. We have a high water year. It's something to get excited about. But I've shown you the picture of our responsibility along FMZ 20 East. Those water levels don't translate the same as you start working through Lake St. Lawrence. Francis only changes maybe 10 inches through this whole time. Lake St. Lawrence is absolutely devastated by low water and what can possibly happen. A centimeter of water in the Great Lakes represents about a decimeter or 4 inches of water around Montreal. If they opened up that watershed, we would bury Montreal. That corner right there is that corner right there. So as we start working through the water level management and the conversations that we have in it, understand that it impacts at different levels straight across the board. What you're seeing around Cornwall is not what's happening in other spaces. That's a nemesis. That's our problem. High water, good. Low water, these are taken within 3 months of each other. 2 years. That's June, and I believe that's April. 2 years down the road. Recruitment is our problem. Recruitment's caused, the numbers have diminished substantially since the early 2000s. Used to be able to go onto areas and actually capture 20 young of the year. Can you imagine that? Not. 20 young in the year, so our watershed was healthy, deemed healthy. Muskellunge population, good to go. Come 2003, question marks start arriving. By 2006, you have a major die-off of over 50% of the population of muskellunge on the St. Lawrence River. I'll identify that as the upper St. Lawrence River because our friends down here in St. Francis weren't really bothered by the whole thing. Monitoring recruitment is one of the greatest challenges on the St. Lawrence River. Finding out where the teenagers are at, or even, that's even more challenging. But I spent almost 5 years pulling nets for Parks Canada, and we never seen a young of the year. And that was absolutely devastating. These areas were healthy at one time. We watched the march of the Round Goby. There was a time when they weren't here. Right now, the upper St. Lawrence River will struggle to maintain a natural, reproducing, self-sustaining population, and that's even with the uptick in numbers. They've got to get exponential on us. We've got to start finding a whole bunch more of them. I'm going to talk a little bit about adaptive program support. I've been making a little bit of noise with regards to it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time beating around the bush here. There was a time when everything was strategic and we were going in one direction. Now we have to accept that it's biology and it's going to make its own choices. We have to be the ones that have the capacity to change. We build in flexibility, scalability. I can put 4 people out there doing a job, or I can put 40. Has to be able to work. Has to be compatible with all other programs. Again, you'll hear me say clean report lines, a single shared data source. And we always do this annual review. That's not my business, but I do provide for John Farrell what's going on, how the guys felt, what's been happening on the river, just basically an overview or a review, not professional done, but I give him an idea of how our anglers actually did or how they felt. After that review, if there's a requirement, then there's a slight program adjust. I want to go back a slide just so I can have a little bit of fun with it. Top left is a byproduct of our watershed. That was caught in Mallorytown. That is more pike than muskie, but completely black and silver. Absolute beautiful specimen. The fish, the below is our grass pickerel. Muskie at the top. And then from 2018, a very, very good indication of what happens when there's a cross-pollination. I say the same species, same family. We've got a pike down below and a hybrid just above it. Same spawn. Pictures here are where we want them to get to. Not a single fish there is under 54 inches. The bottom left there is a friend of mine. We found an older gentleman on a pontoon boat waving us over. He had had the fish. The water temperature was 50 degrees, and he had the fish on line for over 50 minutes. He had absolutely no equipment to look after it. He was probably 85 years old himself, and he says, "Is it longer than 47 inches?" I couldn't stop laughing. It was the happiest fish in the world we've ever had. Took the hook out of its mouth, and it just sat there beside the boat as it captured itself. Nick Edwards at the top. You'll see a picture of him very shortly. Or a picture of his environment very shortly. Tracking muskie angling practices. This is so much fun talking to the Ministry of Natural Resources because they themselves actually they're done doing their surveys, and we're just actually getting out in the water. So come September, where they pack all their students away, they've done all their creel studies and all their interviews on the boat launches. They're all gone away. We got people that don't even drop a line in the water until mid-September or even into November. I am not kidding. We can do fair weather fishing. I get out there in the daytime sometimes. Matt's in the back there. I promised him a fishing trip. I'm not exactly sure. We kind of had to skip over it a few times. Everything was working right until the tornado hit us in Mallory Town last year and dropped 33 trees on me, but that was okay. As the sun falls, the fish become more active. So you'll catch me probably hitting the water around 4 o'clock in the afternoon or run for an hour and a half after dark, after the sun has actually fallen. You have to be properly equipped. This is not a poor man's sport. Unfortunately, we would love to say it's inexpensive. For people in the audience, there's a smile on people's faces. Long hours, limited success. I've been out on the water for 3 weeks almost straight and never got a sniff. We call that washing baits. We call that musky angling. There's deliberate release and recovery practices, because nothing is more sobering than you looking down the throat of your first 50-inch fish and somebody hands you a set of pliers and say, "Here, remove them." I say we're hard anglers to follow around. The M&R studies don't have clearance to get into the water. I've been told that. They are not even allowed to get in the water with us, because that time of year, they don't get dressed up that much. And I'm really hoping this will run. This is a member, Nick Edwards, coming into Clayton, New York last December 10th. It's okay, Matt, I won't take you out there, because at the same time we were trying to beat through 4 inches of ice on our side of the water. It just wasn't working. You have the heaters and the fans running. This is yours truly. I kind of get stuck here. Up to my neck in water. Top left picture is a friend of mine. That's probably a 55-inch specimen. There were a lot of locals fishing the water looking for walleye, and suddenly the walleye didn't show up. We went through, and that little girl there produced herself. The bottom is one of the vats at the Thousand Islands Biological Station with probably 20,000 young of the year, 20,000 fry in the water. So at this point here, I'm not going to sum up, but I have a bone to pick with the world, because certain things I can solve and certain things I can't. And this is very important to me. I just got them in point form, so bear with me. Talks specifically about data collection. I am a member of a fishing club. My hours I log, the fish I catch, I record, and we put them into a system, and it forms a data set. This data set is very, very important. I'm one person. Outside of that one person, we have membership. My members are about 70 people, straight across the board, American and Canadian. And for every one of them, there's probably another 25 or 30 people that are out there. And they aren't sharing data. They're holding it. We need this information on the St. Lawrence River. It's critical for management. We have people that are involved in our chapter right now that are taking our information every year. Before it was questionable, now it's an absolute. I don't know how to solve it. I'll go to speak to groups. I'll tell them, it's great that you're an angler. It's great that you've caught 600 fish. They'll tell you that we've got all our information. What are you doing with it? It's extremely frustrating. One water body, our community. I started this gig a long time ago, and I was looking after the muskellunge. And somehow, eventually, it was environmental. You know, you got to protect the environment. Then you started to see the switch into what's happening to the ecology because of lake shipping, because of the pollutants. You started seeing what's happening because of the water level and the water level changes. It's been a revelation for me. But then as time progressed, I started being dragged into other committees and other groups, and then we started to stitch the St. Lawrence River between the communities on the Canadian and the US side. I have genuine concern for the local population that are here. I don't share the optimism that they're trying to produce right now. I concern myself with harmonizing an effort, harmonizing a management effort straight across the board, regardless of the species. I see that being incredibly logical, easier to manage. But then the community piece started, and it's respect for the community. It's when people and organizations stop respecting the human component. How are we as an organization trying to look after the fish? Where do we fit into all this? Where does that ecology fit in? It came to a head at our last fish health subcommittee when the cross-reference was made about how healthy the watershed had all of a sudden become. I'm not comfortable with that. We need a universal group that's saying exactly the same thing. It's not two water bodies, it's one. And we're a community, a single community, not just separated by an international border. And take a quick look here. I would like to thank our hosts, the River Institute, for inviting Muskies Canada in for this short presentation. And with that, I have something here. Are there any questions? Yes.
I have about four. The first one is, what is the range of muskie? Because you've got people down in the States as far down as Missouri, but what is the actual range of muskie? I admit I don't know a thing about them.
So what ended up happening is they called this the Great Lakes Basin. And within the Great Lakes Basin, and it's something that I didn't throw up, I could have thrown a picture of where muskies occupy, but 80% of the muskie population in North America lives within the Great Lakes Basin. And I've had people, I build baits, I've had people from Colorado order my baits in to have shipped down there, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out what watershed they're in down there to actually fish the muskies. But generally, there is a huge footprint. And if you were to take a look at the map and look at the Great Lakes Basin, that's us.
Okay. Second question, I'm going to put the second and third question sort of together.
Okay.
You talked about how the population of muskie has gone downhill, and then you talked about a couple of other species. Is there a lot of cross breeding that's going on, and that's affecting it, or is it all water levels, or what? I didn't quite understand.
There is, my apologies for that. There is a kaleidoscope of problems we have right now for muskellunge. They are very, very sensitive to their environment and the ecologies in which they live. They actually have maternal homing, and they'll go to the same place to breed through their whole life cycle. And because we're changing that, we're altering that. I don't want to wade too far into the invasives, but the quagga mussel, the zebra mussel, when it started, they started eating all the planktons and the zooplanktons, which are critical for these young fish once they've gone through their, once they're growing out of their egg, between the egg size and 4 centimeters, they need that. And they're starving for that type of food right now. Now, the person, I don't steal anybody's thunder. I work directly for our friends down in the States. I know there's a stocking effort. That effort for me is not as important as the tagging effort and the genetic harvest effort that they've asked us to do for them, which runs alongside of it. I can say our numbers, since 2014, they put in about 150,000, whether advanced fry or young of the year muskellunge in the water. And we're chasing around these small fish that have these little pit tags in, and it's pretty frustrating.
Thank you.
Yes. Matt.
Thanks for that talk, Rob. That was excellent. I had a question about the pit tag kind of volunteer aspect. That's really great that the members are scanning the fish that they catch to see if there's any pit tags in them. Is there a lot of those readers out there, and how much success have you had finding fish?
Our success, and I mean, I would rather have John Farrell stand in front of you because he could do this stone-faced. All the effort, tagging effort that we've put in since 2014, our group started, I believe, in 2002 or 2003, the tagging effort on the St. Lawrence River. That effort so far has only recaptured one fish.
Wow.
And that guy that I showed the picture of, the snowstorm, he was the fellow that caught it.
That's what it takes.
It was a lot warmer when he caught it. Yes.
Rob, Lawrence Gunther here from Bluefish Canada. I just want to say thank you for what you guys are doing. Muskies Canada is a leader in North America in collecting data and studying fish and commitment to the fish health. I mean, you guys have been at it for 24 years. Muskies Canada overall has been at it for over 40 years and collecting data on data points year after year after year. But all that to say, it's getting more popular to catch muskie. In the Ottawa River, the number of guides and the number of boats out there fishing is going up every year, and you see this pushing down into the St. Lawrence. People are going to more and more to the St. Lawrence to get away from the crowds on the Ottawa River. And at the same time, this new technology, this forward-facing sonar technology, is making muskie a fish of 10,000 casts into a much fewer casts because you can actually go and look for them. How is this affecting the fishing on the St. Lawrence River?
So forward facing, there's a study going on right now. The Ministry of Natural Resources they want to see exactly how that's working with muskies. And we were just briefed, I think our last meeting, we had a fellow come in there and chat with us. He gave a presentation, and then we filled out a questionnaire. And does it really impact the fisheries? Like myself, I do own a forward facing. It doesn't look forward, it looks backward, so I can find out where the baits are actually located. I'm not a technician. We do have anglers that are very, very good that are semi-pro, they're bass anglers. They've been doing this for years. But the forward-facing sonars, I think it's causing a little more disruption with the people that don't understand it. For myself, I point it in behind and I find out where my baits are actually located, and I use the technology that I've got right now, my mapping technology, and I turn the systems off and I just follow the map. I don't want things pinging that the fish don't really like. The Great Lake, what's proven, what we've observed is the muskies don't necessarily like it. And it's not like you're shooting fish in a barrel here. They will hold an area, but if they don't like what they're hearing or seeing, they'll move. They do cover a lot of area. Forward facing, the jury's still out on it. The research is going on right now. I think there's a misconception of its success rates. Even though you got people that are down south, they're doing all sorts of things that it's disturbing to see it used in that fashion. I don't believe, as I've been informed by the folks, the cat's out of the bag, or the genie's out of the bottle. It's not like you can push it back in. So how do you manage that? We started this about 2 years ago and talked about responsible use of it. So for myself, it's always pointing backwards. We'll have a little bit of fun with it. I get people in the boat, and my co-pilot is looking backwards at the two rods, and he gets to observe what's coming in and what's not. We'll drive for hours and see nothing, or we might get very, very fortunate and see a fish come up to sniff a bait. I have, and I can say this without reservation, I have caught 3 fish, and I've watched them come up to the bait and take it. I was going that direction, I was looking backwards. I wasn't fishing, I wasn't targeting as in casting. So I think the one takeaway there is you can observe how often a fish comes up and takes a look. You know, you may come up 20 times to take a look. You may see it 20 times before you'll actually get a fish that'll hook up. It doesn't help. I don't honestly believe it helps that much. And then you've got these people that are doing the wrong things with it. And then I find that disturbing. I do. That answer the question?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It's definitely the muskie tournament series have taken exception. The muskie tournament series have taken exception on forward-facing sonar.
Yeah.
You know, you see boats with 4 systems looking in all directions, and they're scouting for fish, and
it's
just
disturbing.
And targeting fish with their casting, and you know, basically putting those lures right in front of their faces. So not waiting for the fish to come to them, but going to the fish, and it's definitely an advantage when it comes to that sort of fishing.
It does if you know what you're doing. I guess I've owned it now for I'm going to say 4 years, so I've been using it for about 4 years. Everything's updated. I am not adverse to thinking, you know, my system can come right out of the boat. It's not hardwired to the boat. It's portable, so I can pick it up and put it in any boat I want, really. But I believe once we finish the survey, once we get the accurate look at it, then we're going to make an educated decision. In Muskies Canada, we are actually, if through our report lines, you know, did you use forward-facing sonar in the capture of this fish? We've actually got a toggle there where you can actually put a check mark in it. And it'll help things along. But not a lot of people own it. Yeah, I guess it is expensive. And like I said, once the survey is complete, then we'll be able to make a better educated decision. But what we can't do is let emotions, I'd say opinion-based science, it kind of push things along. Let's get an accurate shot at it, and that's being done. So we're glad for that.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Yeah.
So many questions for Rob, but I'll limit it here. Rob, the chain pickerel, sort of the population's taking off in some areas around the Thousand Islands and on the south side, but are you hearing from the members, or, you know, when they're out and about, seeing more of that? Or
We're not. I get a lot of pictures sent to me. You know, I'm kind of a impact area for, look what I found, a crooked back or a chain pickerel. What is this? We're seeing a little bit more, but we have been told that these populations are increasing. I haven't observed it personally, but then again, the fish are probably not interested. They're not a very large fish, and they're probably not interested in what I'm dragging in behind the boat to capture. But we've been told, I believe the Ministry of Natural Resources is calling them invasive and want us to deal with them as such. But I believe the reality right now from our friends down south, they're new, they're here, and they're not going anywhere. It's like trying to eradicate the goby at this point in time. They're here. And there is indications that they have started to cross-pollinate with northern pike.
I'm not a fisherman, but I've never heard of chain pickerel. Where do they come from?
Well, they're actually, they came from down south. Chain pickerel is, and I'll be quite honest with you, there was a professor back in the 80s, and I wish I had his name. It was J.P. LeBlanc had given us a briefing about how he had told us if the water temperatures got to this, we're going to start seeing an awful lot of movement of fish from down south. And he actually Nostradamusly said, we're going to have chain pickerel. They're going to be in our watershed. And not surprisingly enough, they did show up, and in quite substantial numbers. I'm kind of sorry I didn't put up another slide to show what a chain pickerel looks like. They're very much different. They look a lot like the northern pike, but only backwards with regards to the markings. But they've come in from the States. We've got them in Ontario also, in the inland lakes, and they're extremely popular on the East Coast.
Does anyone have any more questions? No, nothing online? Okay, perfect.
And that's it. I do have another slide for folks that think that we're just a bunch of, how would you say, folks that don't quite understand what's going on the watershed. There's our shameless plug number 2. MCI membership about 960. We're getting there. We're getting there, man. That's the drive for 1,000. That's our president right now. Can't say enough about him. But this is my environmental rhythm. And I will always rehash and say you got to know the history. People are trying to sell us all the time on how we're here to help. What are the original influences on the environment that affected the ecological change? Who was responsible for the current data set? I want to know who these people are. And then what effect are we trying to achieve? Have or can conditions be corrected to the point of rehabilitation? At this point in time, you know, these are very serious points that I put together. I produced that for Muskies Canada, and I will pose that question all the time. Because we've got to education program ourselves. We've got to make ourselves a little bit smarter so we can compete with yous. We rely heavily on the scientific community to help us along. And there's our shameless plug too. And that's it.